It's so important to be considerate of yourself in relationships when you're in a relationship with someone. Otherwise, if you're not, even the smallest act of inconsideration or absent-mindedness can just seem so intense and could blow up into the biggest fights and dramas that don't actually need to happen. And so this shift could be an absolute game changer for you if you take it in. So what a lot of people do when they're in relationship is at some point they fall into routine. They fall into, oh, well, this is just what we do every weekend, or this is what we do every day, or this is just how things go. And when you're in routine, you're not in inspiration, unless, of course, it's an inspired routine. But you understand the textures that I'm speaking to here. When you're in a routine, when you're well, this is just what we do on the weekends, or this is just what we do when we're together. When you're in that energy, you're not in inspiration, which means you're not in the fullest version of yourself, which means you're not in the highest aspect of yourself, which means you're not being considerate to yourself on some level. And so you won't experience the fulfillment that you can be experiencing from within yourself, regardless of if you're in a relationship or not. See, oftentimes what people do, and boy, I could relate to this because I went through this, but oftentimes what people do is when they're in relationship, they might be like, like I miss being single because I miss, being single because I was more adventurous and I was doing this and I was doing that. And, I didn't feel like I had to XYZ, right? When really what you're saying is that you're missing certain energies that you cut off from yourself. Because it's not being single or not being single. Because right now, if you're in a relationship, you're experiencing a part of yourself, and this has its positives and maybe negatives. And then if you're thinking of being single and you're like, oh, but I miss this, then you're just trading one part for another part, thinking that this represents wholeness. But this part had the desire for this part once upon a time, but it just didn't go the way you planned, maybe, right? The idea is to merge. The idea is to recognize that there's no reason for you not to feel whole, whether you're single or whether you're in a relationship. But to allow yourself to ascend into a place of wholeness so that you can make your choices and your decisions and your movements from that space and let your wholeness reveal more of the truth of what's wanting to unfold. So that's the idea. Now let's get into the practicality of what do I mean. Let's just say you're in a romantic relationship and you've been living in routine and you feel like you're not getting certain things from your partner. You feel like they're not showing up for you with a certain kind of energy. You want them to be more manly, or you want them to be more feminine. You want them to be more something. That's your clue. The second you're wanting your partner to be more blank, that's your clue that you have an unconscious desire, an unconscious need that isn't being fulfilled by yourself. And so unconsciously, you're projecting it onto them, saying, I want you to become this energy so that I can feel good again with you. It's innocent, but that's what's happening. So if you find yourself saying those words, if you find yourself, oh, I want him to be more manly or her to be more feminine or whatever the thing is, I want you to recognize that this is an idea of consideration, okay? There's somewhere where you're not fully just being with yourself. You're being so much with the problems and the pains and the traumas, and you're being so much with those other things that you're not just being with yourself. So take a moment now, just be with yourself. Recognize, if you can, the space of you that is and always and already connected to source energy, even as you're experiencing your pain and the crap. And as you're feeling that space, ask yourself, where could you choose to be more considerate of yourself? Or the question might look like, where are you not feeling considered And that will give you the reflection of, okay, well, I feel like I'm not getting considered here. And so this is where I could be more considerate of myself, is give myself these things, put myself first here. Okay, that's another way of doing it. So pay attention to that, where you can choose to be more considerate of yourself. And chances are that if you follow that energy through, you're going to get to a fear. Okay, so let's say being more considerate of yourself looks like just acting on your inspiration more instead of going into routine. So think of a moment where you're likely to go into routine energy or something that's just familiar. Think of a moment, it could be in the past or it could be in the future. And then as you think of that moment, stop and realize, like, okay, I'm about to choose routine energy. What other energy can I choose? Where do I feel inspiration that perhaps I'm not acting on? And then it might be, oh, well, I really want to go out and I really just want to go out with my friends. And maybe I want to go out without my partner. And, oh, but if I go out without my partner, but then I'm afraid that maybe I'll attract the wrong kind of attention, or this thing will happen, or that thing will happen. That is the fear that was present. That's the fear that's present in your expansion point. That's the fear that was in your unconscious that was actually preventing you from going this direction in the first place and having you experience the reality you're experiencing of incompleteness or inconsideration. Does that make sense? So whatever that fear is, you know, like, oh, but I fear like this will happen or that'll happen if I go do this, or my person will be triggered. Whatever the fear is, that is where you're limiting yourself. That's where you're capping yourself. That's the ceiling that you've created for yourself in your own ascension, unconsciously and innocently. So being aware of that, recognize that, okay, that's the fear, sure, but you know who you prefer to be. You know that you prefer to be someone of integrity, someone of honesty, someone of transparency, that even if you go in certain directions and your partner gets triggered, let's say, well, they might get triggered, but will that make them reflect? And if they reflect, will that make them take new and different actions? And if they take new and different actions, can you see a different synchronicity unfolding where by taking those actions, or they might chill with different people themselves and then reconnect to more of their own fire and inner nature and become more of the vibration of what you were looking for to begin with by choosing to do that yourself? Can you see how this plays out? The golden rule here is that if something is not in alignment for you, then it's not in alignment for anyone else, regardless of how it looks. If it's not in alignment for you, it is not in alignment for them. Okay, remember that. So now doing this, I know I'm walking you through a bunch of different things over here. Now doing this, as you imagine going in the direction you prefer, towards your inspirations, towards your adventure, towards whatever that is, even if it's doing it on your own, and being considerate to yourself, I want you to notice and imagine how that makes you feel. Simulate it in your imagination, how it makes you feel adventurous, more connected, more alive, more fulfilled, more lit, more in tune, right? And even if you attract certain things that you do or don't prefer, certain situations, you know who you prefer to be. And so you're going to give yourself the experience of being who you are in those circumstances and situations, which allows you to become more energized, which allows you to be more of yourself, be like, oh, wow, yo, I'm good in this. I'm good in this pocket because I know me. I know who I prefer to be. That was just fear. Okay. Does this make sense? So you're choosing the highest for yourself, which means by law of reflection, from you going from this vibration to this vibration, your reflections have to change. The reflection of your partner has to change. The reflection of your reality has to change. Doesn't matter how subtle or significant, it has to. This is just how it works. So when you imagine that for yourself and you imagine being considerate of yourself and that reality, now imagine how things may unfold for the other. Okay, so you might see them go through triggers, you might see them go through this, that, the other, but don't look at it through a lens of fear. Just look at it through a lens of synchronicity, of what you imagine might happen on their end, if it's helpful. If you want to do this part isn't as necessary, it's just extra. But it'll just allow you to see through your intuition, through your inner sight, through feeling, how choosing things that are in alignment for you will only equal greater alignment for everyone else involved. Okay, this is the highest act of service, the highest act of love you could possibly give, because then you're allowing yourself to become a new person, you're allowing them to become a new person, and then you get the experience of being new people with each other, which breaks you out of routine and makes more fun, and you see new petals of their blossom and things of that nature. It is such a necessary and essential game changer to relationships, because all too often people sacrifice themselves, right? They do things at their expense, thinking that love is self-sacrifice. That love is, I do everything for them, I'm gonna put them first, I'm gonna do this thing because this is what our relationship is. But if you're not prioritizing yourself, if you're not filling up your own cup, overflowing yourself so that you can give from your overflow, then that's actually not the fullest spectrum of love. That's not unconditional love, because there should be no conditions on how you choose to dance with your love, right? So I hope this video is helpful for you guys. This is a big one that will speak to certain people, especially those of you who are in relationships and are maybe experiencing routine and want to liven things up. You want to bring more passion and magic and flavor into the relationship, which needs to be done with yourself first. All right. So let me know how this video landed for you, and if there are any other questions that come up, by leaving them in the comments below. And as always, if you love this video, if you feel like it'll be helpful to others, please go ahead and share it. And I'll see more of you when I can. My name is David Lyon. Website is www.livingmagic.life. I'll see you soon. Peace.